After this, I think, very interesting conversation we had with Mr. Daniel Fried, former ambassador to Poland, we are moving to another session, United States Midterm Elections. What does the result mean for the global challenges? And we have, first of all, a video message by Mr. Bilirakis, Congressman, U.S. House of Representatives. Please, can we have the video on the screen, please?
I want to start off by thanking you for giving me the opportunity to participate in this important discussion. I'm sorry I'm not able to be with you. I wish I could be. However, we have votes in Washington, D.C., and I know you understand. As the grandson of Greek immigrants and being a strong supporter of Greece, everything that is Greek, our culture, our heritage, our religion, of course, our language as well, I'm heavily invested, as you know, in Hellenic affairs. The region is vital to the American interests, and Greece has always been a strong, unwavering ally of the United States. I'm the co-chair of the Congressional Hellenic Caucus and the founding co-chair of the Congressional Hellenic Israel Alliance. Israel is a strategic ally in the region as well, sharing a common defense strategy with the United States, Greece, Cyprus, and other allies to thwart existential threats from bad actors. As a matter of fact, I know Egypt has been an ally in the region as well, and I plan to meet with the president of Egypt in the near future. I believe it'll be in a couple of weeks. He'll be coming to the United States, and I have an appointment with him. As a leader in these groups, I help facilitate a better level of understanding among my colleagues of policy initiatives that affect Greece, Israel, Cyprus, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Again, whatever is good for Greece, Cyprus, and Israel is good for the United States. I also work with like-minded colleagues to raise awareness of Turkish aggression and other bad acts by Erdogan that have been contrary to America's national interests and, of course, the region. In an increasingly connected world, it is important to recognize that upheaval and global unrest can have ripples that echo across the Atlantic. We've seen that with Russia's invasion in Ukraine. I embrace the opportunity to work with world leaders to ensure a peaceful and prosperous future for America and our allies. To that end, I'm proud of the passage of the Eastern Mediterranean Security and Energy Partnership Act of 2019 and the U.S.-Greece Defense and Interparliamentary Partnership Act of 2021, both of which I was the primary co-lead. These bills sought to strengthen the security and energy efforts between the United States, Greece, Cyprus, and Israel, and create a formal organization where these like-minded countries can achieve energy prosperity and help solve Europe's energy insecurity problems. This has been crucial as we talk about restarting the Greek economy. Greece is by far the most prime country to provide Europe with energy it so desperately needs, and of course, with cooperation from Cyprus and Israel. Russia's invasion of Ukraine highlighted the strategic vulnerability Europe faces when it comes to energy security, and I've made it a priority to capitalize fully on Greece's opportunity to fulfill that role. Back in 2019, I pushed to grow American involvement in the port of Alexandroupoli because I knew that growing the relationship between Greece and the United States would help both countries economically and strategically. I also look forward to the completion of the LNG terminal at the port, which will be instrumental in getting the much-needed natural gas to southeastern Europe, already significantly vulnerable, unfortunately, to the Russian military and economic interventions. Again, additionally, I have been a vocal supporter of the East Med pipeline. The pipeline represents a tangible cooperative effort that could have been a true solution to Europe's energy needs and an economic boon to the Eastern Mediterranean. Sadly, the Biden administration threw cold water on the project earlier this year before even preliminary feasibility testing, and actively sought to discourage private investment in the project. Well, I hope that the Biden administration reconsiders its stance on the pipeline, especially in light of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I'm also optimistic that the promising development and use of LNG infrastructure in Greece, Israel, Cyprus, and Egypt will allow for Greece to grow into a prime energy hub that is so desperately needed in Europe. There's so much potential here. These are indeed challenging times, my friends. But if we continue to stand firm with our allies and against those who seek to undermine stability and threaten our national interests, I'm confident we will prevail. We must prevail. Now is indeed the time to make big bets on one another and in the fundamental values we embrace. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you at this conference, and I hope it is most productive.
Ευχαριστούμε. Thank you, Mr. Bilirakis. Now we have a few conversations pre-recorded with U.S. representatives, Congress representatives, starting with Ms. Nicole Malliotakis, Congresswoman at the U.S. House of Representatives, New York. So please, can we put the video on of this conversation?
Hi, how are you?
Hello, Congresswoman Malliotakis. How are you?
Good.
How is New York?
It's getting cold.
Thank you for accepting our invitation to participate at the 33rd Greek Economic Summit. And also, please accept our congratulations for being re-elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. So I have a few questions for you, and I want to share them in the next, let's say, 8 to 10 minutes, if I may.
Sure.
As a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, what are your views on the geopolitical and energy crisis impacting the international relations of U.S. with Europe and other countries as well?
Yeah, so the Russian invasion of Ukraine really put a spotlight on the need for countries to be energy independent and not to rely on adversaries. Unfortunately, in Europe, we saw the closure of some nuclear plants. We saw some bans on extracting natural gas, and this has had an impact, right? They become more reliant on Russia as a result. Now, we're seeing some of those very same policies that have given away energy independence in Europe now being adopted here in the United States by the Democrats. And that's what we're concerned about. I'm for clean energy. I'm for diversification, but not to the exclusion of our traditional sources, oil and gas. And that's where the difference is, I think, between the Republican point of view and the Democrat point of view. We are seeing same things happening here with closing nuclear power plants in New York, refusal by state agencies to expand gas plants, the president issuing the lowest number of leases since Harry Truman's administration decades ago. That is not smart domestic policy. I think we need to utilize our natural resources. We need to become not only energy independent, but energy dominant so we can help our allies, as you mentioned, like Europe. Europe right now is going to be in a very tough situation. They are going to ban certain oil imports beginning from Russia beginning this next week, and then in February they're going to further put that ban. And so they're going to be looking for alternatives, and there's going to be more competition for international energy, and the supply is going to be more in demand. And so the United States can be a leader here by ramping up domestic energy production for our own use and for the use of our allies. And so in the Northeast region, we also face an issue with a shortage of diesel, which is a main source of heat. 1 out of 5 homes in the Northeast region. So that's something that can also be addressed if we adopt the energy policies that I and proposing. And so Republicans are going to be very strong on this issue and be very forceful and adamant that the Biden administration needs to adopt a more aggressive approach to energy independence with an all-in clean energy, but our traditional sources as well, not just for our own national security and independence, but for our allies as well.
Thank you. We all are aware that U.S.-Greece relations are all-time high. Do you think that this will continue and even become stronger, no matter what is the majority in the Congress or the next U.S. president?
Yeah, well, it was a great honor for me to be in the House chamber when Prime Minister Malliotakis came to speak with us a few months ago. As you know, my father's from Crete, and he hails from the same island as Prime Minister Malliotakis, and so it was a very proud moment for me and my family to be present, but also to be able to escort, the Prime Minister to various meetings with other members of Congress. And he made a very great speech and a very great appeal to the members when he spoke with them individually about how our foundations are very similar. Obviously, Greece, the birthplace of democracy, and the United States taking those principles for this republic. And I think that that's a strong foundation that we must continue to grow. And we've been great allies ever since. We feel that there's some good opportunities, I think, to protect Greece, particularly when we see Turkish aggression. One of the things we did shortly after his visit was we put forth an amendment that would require the Biden administration to affirm to Congress that any jets sold to Turkey would not be used for aggression against Greece. We put that in there, and the Republicans, by the way, helped deliver the votes necessary. The Democrats could not have passed that on its own. So Gus Bilirakis and I joined forces with Chris Pappas, and we delivered the 60-plus votes that were needed to get that across the finish line.
Okay, I have a last question for you. As the first female elected representative of Greek and Hispanic diaspora to the New York State Assembly, how do you feel now when you're a representative on a federal level? And what message can you send to young women who are aspiring to make a global social impact?
Well, look, I'm very, very proud to be able to have come to this point to represent my community that I love, my country that I love in the United States Congress. And I think that that's the aspirations of the American dream. When immigrants come to this country, and particularly my parents in this case, I don't think they've dreamed that their daughter would become a United States member of Congress. But that is truly, the American dream that we have to work to preserve for future generations. We've seen a tremendous number of Republican women entering the House of Representatives over the last 2 years. My class was a huge class of women. We've just added a few more this year. We're very, very proud of the way the Republican Party has grown to have more women representing our country, but also more minorities. We have many Hispanics. We have African Americans, we have Asian Americans. And so the Republican Party is becoming as diverse as our nation is. And I think that's really important because I've always known that the Republican Party was the big tent party. It was just that we didn't have people in these key roles. And I think that now that we see more people stepping up and running and they're getting support and are being elected, it's very important. I'm only the second woman to represent my district in Congress. And so I'm very, very proud of that. I'm the first generation woman to represent my district in Congress, and certainly the first Greek American or Hispanic American to represent my district in Congress. So there's a lot of things there that I hope we can build on in the future. And I'm just really excited to see how many more diverse members we've been able to welcome over the last 2 years to the House of Representatives on the Republican side in particular.
Congresswoman Malliotakis, thank you very much for being with us at the Greek Economic Summit, and we look forward to see you in person when you visit Athens, Greece, in the near future. Thank you very much.
Great. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was a conversation with Ms. Nicole Malliotakis. And next we have another conversation between Chris Pappas, Congressman, U.S. House of Representatives, with Mr. Alexandros Kosopoulos. Can we put the video on, please?
Thanks very much for the opportunity to join you, and congratulations on the anniversary. And certainly hope everything goes well. I'm here in Washington. We've got some important business to finish up before the end of the year. But I think, as you say, it has been really important from the United States perspective to ensure that this relationship with Greece is strong and is prepared for the future. And I think it is really at a new high right now in terms of the relationship and the trust on both sides. And we need to always look for ways to deepen that. You know, governments will come and go, political parties will win and lose elections. This is something that is so much bigger than that. And so my focus is always on ensuring that this relationship is in a bipartisan space here in Washington, that there's support on both sides of the aisle. We have a Hellenic caucus, and I work very closely with my Republican counterparts across the aisle on these issues. We've worked very hard over the last few months on this F-16 issue with Turkey, really looking to put in some tough new language that would prevent our government from transferring weapon systems to Turkey at a point in time where they're clearly not behaving as other NATO allies are behaving, and they're violating the sovereignty of Greece and Cyprus on a very regular basis. And I have deep concerns about how they're playing both sides of the fence in Ukraine. And talking about the issue of Ukraine, I mean, that is the backdrop for so much of the work on the world stage right now. You know, this lawless invasion by Putin, violation of the independence of the Ukrainian people, is something that should cause freedom-loving people all around the world to take sides. And I really want to commend the Greek people for finding common cause with Ukraine. Ukraine continues to need all of us in the West to support them, to provide the kind of assistance that will allow them to get through this tough winter. And I think in the same way that Greeks and Americans find common cause in terms of our democratic roots, we see that in the struggle of the Ukrainian people right now. And we have to do everything we possibly can to repel this Russian invasion and ensure that they can live in peace and dignity and with freedom too. But I think that, you know, as we talk about the Greek-U.S. relationship, it's about drawing on those values that we share. It's about working to deepen the relationship that we have with respect to our economy, to energy, to national security, to so many issues. We've made progress by passing meaningful legislation that looks to strengthen partnerships in the Eastern Mediterranean. And I think as we look at sort of this new world order with, you know, competition between the United States and Russia and China, it's really important that we recognize who our friends are and how we can most effectively work together to meet the needs of the moment. And I think we've seen a lot of that, but there's more work to do.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. You mentioned all those positive forces that have somehow united in Eastern Mediterranean. It's like in other parts of the world, looking for stability and collaboration and sort of sustainable growth and tackling all those amazing challenges that lie ahead for everyone, regardless if they are in Washington or in Kiev or in Athens. At the same time, however, we are watching, especially obviously in Athens, is more vivid. We are watching this sort of rise of authoritarian voices and in perhaps unprecedented for our generation levels. I mean, especially, you know, for someone like my age, in my age, it kind of feels bad the fact that we're discussing and we're listening about things that we felt have remained and should remain in the past, especially right after the Second World War. Do you feel worry about these sort of two different pillars and how those positive, let's say, forces can manage to tackle and manage the other side, who seems uncontrollable in certain aspects, at least in their narrative?
Yeah, well, I think it's deeply concerning. And if you look at authoritarian regimes, they're placing their bets against democracies and against the free world from being able to respond to economic challenges, to security challenges. But I do think that we are up to the task, and it's all about collaboration and how we can strengthen our NATO bonds, how we can make sure that Western countries stand together against Putin and the invasion of Ukraine and so many other challenges that we see around the world. I think that what I've been focused on here lately, is largely a set of domestic issues and challenges that you also see in Greece, including high inflation, an economy that isn't necessarily working for every family. We've got people who are working harder, but their paychecks aren't going as far as they used to. And so, for democracies to be strong, we have to make sure that we can deliver for people. And we have to show that both in terms of domestic and international policy. So, I take that responsibility seriously each and every day. My job in Congress is to reflect the diversity of my district and to try to translate people's lived experiences into progress. And that is really the test that we have to meet today, because if we fail to deliver, if we fail to create an economy that is working, that provides the kind of prosperity and strength that our nations individually need moving forward, then we're more susceptible to authoritarianism and the kind of extremism that has taken over, at an alarming rate parts of the world. So I think this is both an inside and an outside game. It's both making sure that we are strong at home, that there is opportunity and prosperity on the horizon for folks, that democracies can deliver results, but also that we're linking arms together to talk about our shared values and how we confront the growing authoritarianism that we see from Putin, from Erdogan, from so many other regimes around the world.
Going back to the political system in the States, do you feel that the results from the midterms will sort of change that level of bipartisan collaboration that you mentioned in Washington?
Well, I certainly hope not, but I think there are some signs that, at least with respect to domestic politics, that things could become a little bit more divided. The Republicans have taken control of the House of Representatives. The Democrats control the Senate and the White House. And it appears that Republicans might try to use their investigative powers in the House of Representatives to target the Biden administration. I think we should try to stay focused on the issues of the day, what really matters to folks. Democrats saw some success in the midterm elections in part because we were running against extreme candidates and we were trying to push that extremism to the side and focus on kitchen table issues. And I think that's our charge here for the next few years, is how do we improve the economy? How do we lower costs when it comes to groceries and energy and healthcare and prescription drugs? So I hope that there is room in the agenda over the next 2 years to make some progress on those issues. But I think when it comes to international issues, we're going to see continued bipartisan cooperation and support. And, I'm proud to be, a Greek American in Congress. I'm part of the Hellenic Caucus. We've seen some successes of late, including a big bipartisan vote on the Turkey F-16 issue to try to get an amendment in the defense bill. We're still working on that, by the way. The defense bill should come up next week. And I was just having some conversations on the floor this week with Republicans and Democrats about how we have some tough language in that bill to try to prevent these arms sales to Turkey. And so that cooperation will continue. And I think we also benefit from having advocacy organizations here in the United States that really help focus our attention on what matters with respect to the U.S.-Greek relationship. And so I think staying engaged and, continuing to build those bipartisan bridges is going to be important for the kind of progress that we can make moving forward. But there is a lot on the table. And as I mentioned, some of the progress that we've seen with respect to the Eastern Mediterranean, the 3+1 partnership, as we look at funding and expanding those opportunities, I do think we will see Republicans and Democrats working together.
That was a conversation between Congressman Chris Pappas and Alex Kostopoulos. And another one, and the final one, it's a conversation with John Sarbanes, a pre-recorded one, Congressman at the U.S. House of Representatives.
Hello from Athens, Congressman Sarbanes. How are you?
Yes, good. Kalispera.
Kalispera. Thank you, first of all, for accepting our invitation to participate at the 33rd Greek Economic Summit. First of all, please accept our congratulations for being re-elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. We at Greece feel very proud to have a strong representation of the Greek diaspora at the Congress.
Thank you.
Well, Congressman Sarbanes, I have a few questions for you, which I want to share. As a member of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, what are your views about the energy crisis and how you think it might this end?
We're keeping a very close eye on this crisis. Obviously, it's impacting every country in the globe, including the United States, in very significant ways. There's some factors in this that we don't have control over. We don't have control over Russia's invasion of Ukraine, although we are very much trying to affect Putin's calculations there with various sanctions and other pressures being brought to bear. We can affect in a fundamental way the perspective of Saudi Arabia and other OPEC countries when they make decisions that affect the price of crude oil on world markets. But what we can do is what's happening, which is, I think, a realignment, a transition in the energy arena. Obviously, Europe is on the front lines of this, dealing with the effects of the invasion of Ukraine. And we're in this moment where we're having to scramble and sort of be in a triage mode in order to make sure that the energy supplies and resources are there for Europe and other countries that are being impacted. And that may mean a near-term reliance on some of the more traditional sources of energy, like liquefied natural gas, for example. But we also have a deep appreciation that we're in a transition to a new place of equilibrium that is more reliant on renewable energy, and that kind of energy security represents a significant new opportunity for many countries. So I can't speculate really when the end of the energy crisis will come. That's probably going to be a longer term challenge. But we can work together collaboratively, as we've been doing, to manage what is a very tricky and challenging transition. And I'm very hopeful about that. And when we get to kind of that new place of equilibrium, as I say, I think that will improve things from an energy security and resource standpoint.
Well, thank you very much. Well, everybody admits that the U.S.-Greece relations have reached an unprecedented level. Are you confident that this will continue and even become stronger, no matter what will be the majority in Congress or the next president, the next U.S. president?
There's a deep appreciation of the value that Greece and Cyprus, that those relationships bring to the United States among lawmakers in Congress and certainly among members of the executive branch and the Biden administration. And we want to continue to bring focus to that, continue to educate other lawmakers, make sure that they appreciate it. And I think you're right. We do see a very, very strong bond between our three countries. There's an understanding that Greece is taking a leadership role in terms of providing stability in the Eastern Mediterranean. That's very, very important. So diplomatically, economically, in terms of energy partnerships and so forth, there's a lot of collaboration happening. And I very much hope that that will continue, regardless of which party holds the gavel in either chamber of Congress and regardless of which party occupies the White House. We're certainly going to work very hard as members of the Hellenic Caucus and the Greek diaspora to make sure that that kind of partnership continues to be appreciated at all levels.
What could be that role in the international energy map? Can Greece, besides being an energy and transportation hub, becomes an energy producer as well? And to what extent can the country exercise safely its rights and exploit the possible gas deposit in its territory?
Well, Greece is in a very important position of opportunity right now. As you say, as a transportation hub, there's a new appreciation given what's happened with the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, of the role that Greece can play. But Greece was already demonstrating leadership in terms of this transition to renewable energy sources. And I'm particularly excited about that. I mean, I certainly understand that there's opportunity in terms of these discoveries around natural gas in the Eastern Mediterranean for Greece to take advantage of that resource. But I'm most impressed, I will tell you, by how quickly Greece is moving towards the renewable energy part of the portfolio. And I was very struck. Recently, I read that on one day for a period of 5 hours, the entire country was being powered exclusively by renewable energy. That is a wonderful achievement. And it didn't just happen. It's come about through a very concerted effort on the part of the government, but also on the part of private partners to lift up the renewable potential of Greece and have it serve as a model and an example and a creative laboratory in the renewable energy space for the rest of Europe. So Greece, I think, is in a position to demonstrate real diversity in terms of how they approach energy and develop that resource across the board. And we'll be watching that with a great deal of interest.
Well, you're perfectly right. Actually, I think we have reached the 50% of our energy needs being covered by renewable sources. And I think we have also raised the goal for the next 4 years, if I remember well, to go to 80%, which is fantastic, of course, if we accomplish it. Last question. There are rising concerns about the recent decision of the US government to provide strong incentives and funds to companies in order to strengthen the US industrial productivity. EU countries fear that they might lead to the industrialization of Europe and another round of trade war between US and the EU. What are your views about this?
Well, as I just said, I think if we keep an open line of communication, we can reach a point of agreement and mutual cooperation when it comes to energy and other issues. We know that President Macron is going to be visiting with President Biden here in the United States in the next few days. One of the topics of conversation will be some concern about incentives that the recently passed legislation in the United States Congress offers in terms of the manufacturing of batteries and electric vehicles and other things that's created some concern in Europe. I think we'll work through those. The comments and observations I've seen from administration officials reflect confidence that there can be a meeting of the minds there, and it won't result in conflict. It will actually result in cooperation and creative opportunity. But this is why you have these high-level meetings and discussions to work through challenges and issues and concerns that people have. We know that, to use the phrase that's often used, what unites us is much stronger than what divides us. And right now, I just have to come back and say that there's a deep appreciation at the great sacrifices that are being made in Europe to respond in a unified way to this invasion of Ukraine by Russia. It's a real testament to the ability of European countries to cooperate with one another and to be a pillar of strength globally. When you look at what that response has been, and there's, I think, deep respect and continuing appreciation for that in the United States. So we'll continue to work closely with our allies on all of these various issues. And certainly that includes Cyprus and Greece and our efforts to further the stability of the situation in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Well, I think we are sharing the common values. The two continents are sharing the common values, and I think this is a basic pillar for the strong transatlantic relations beside trade and commerce and investments and all this. So, Senator Sarbanes, I really appreciate the conversation we had. Thank you again, for being with us at the Greek Economic Summit, and we look forward to seeing you in person when you visit Athens and Greece.
Well, thank you once again, and congratulations on the good work that your organization is doing in terms of bringing us together. All the best.
Thank you very much. And that was the final pre-recorded conversation. We were very honored to have the U.S. one Congresswoman and 3 congressmen chatting with us. They are new elected, and actually their election shows the dynamism of the Greek-American diaspora in the U.S. and how it can help, the Greek-American relations. We need to go for a short